Frightening price for our plate of meat, something we don't even need.
Rainforests of the world are breathtaking in their complexity. They house over half the world's animal and plant species. They've given us many of our medicines, anesthetics, anti-cancer drugs, the birth control pill. They hold the soil together, absorb rainfall, and new growth feeds on the decay of the old. They produce oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide. They are nature in balance. And our response is to destroy them. Before 1950, 14% of the world's land was tropical forest. Half has now gone, and each year, a further area the size of Britain disappears. And for what? Largely to provide grazing land for cattle, or to grow soya beans to feed to cattle, most of which comes to the developed countries. In 7 years or so, the land will be almost lifeless and barren.
In 1989, the crew of a spacecraft watched a smoke cloud from thousands of fires spread across 1 million square miles of Amazonia. It was rainforest being cleared for cattle ranching. With the burning of vegetation, huge reservoirs of stored carbon dioxide are unlocked, released to float upwards and provide yet more insulation to prevent heat escaping from the earth. When the cattle arrive, each one belches out 60 litres of methane every day, adding another twist to the spiral. Together, burning and belching provide the second largest contribution to the greenhouse effect. The increases in temperature already predicted will bring flood, famine, and mass migration. Tropical diseases may appear in Britain. But as the temperature increases, the tundra regions of the world will begin to release the methane which is locked in their soil. The more that's released, the more that will be released, a kind of ecological, irreversible meltdown.
Nearly 1/3 of the world's landmass is on the way to becoming desert. What was once lush rainforest is joining the relentlessly spreading dust bowls. In parts of Africa, the Sahara has travelled 350 kilometres south in 20 years. The cause isn't climatic, it's human. Poor soil is pushed beyond its capacity by impoverished people with nowhere else to go, as animals and fodder inherit the earth. Sheep, goats, cattle and camels overgraze poor marginal land until it can produce vegetation no longer. As weather patterns are altered and rainfall reduces, so the great rivers of Africa begin to dry out. The Senegal, the Niger, the Chari. But it isn't just an African or Asian problem.
The United States, the world's largest consumer of meat, has lost 1/3 of all its topsoil. Huge areas of the western states can no longer support agriculture, and the land may well return to buffalo pasture. As underground water supplies are depleted faster than they can be replenished with rain, the soil ceases to provide even grazing, and the herds move on. And as they do, they consume more water in new places. Livestock's demand for water is as destructive as its demand for food. In the case of beef grown on irrigated pastures, 12 times as demanding as vegetables. In Britain, nearly 1/2 of all arable land is now at risk of erosion as intensive farming destroys the very structure of the soil. It goes, with the wind and water, never to return.
Trawlers and seine netters cross the world's oceans, scooping out increasing numbers of ever smaller fish. Heavy trawl boards smash their way across the ocean floor, destroying everything in their path. Every year, more countries scramble to join the killing fields of tuna drift netting, and with each net go the lives of more whales and dolphins, rays and seabirds, turtles and sharks. Some countries continue with their slaughter of whales, mammals with a language more complex than our own, but of which we understand not one word.
Intensive factory farming has also come to the seas of Europe, and it is salmon, mysterious migratory creatures, which are the chosen captives. It is like caging swallows. Crammed into cages, they can only survive with the use of antibiotics and pesticides, and are made marketable by colouring their flesh with an additive banned in the USA. And to feed these imprisoned creatures, the seas are trawled for other fish, industrial fish, 5 pounds to produce 1 pound of salmon meat. It is the economics of the madhouse. And as we pollute the seas, we pollute our own life source. PCBs are industrial chemicals, some of the most poisonous substances known. These now infect almost the whole of the ocean's food chain.
Profit has no conscience, only a balance sheet. In its name, both animals and people are there to be exploited. In the last century, we shipped the world's poor across the oceans as slaves. Now we allow them to remain where they are, but enslave them just as surely by controlling their economies. It is for us that they rear meat and grow fodder. The 15 million children who die each year as a result of starvation are the living and dying testament to a world in crisis.
In the last 2 seconds of our evolutionary year, we have destroyed and poisoned at a rate unknown in the history of the Earth. We have elevated cruelty and greed to the status of a god, yet still pretend that nothing really is wrong. Growth and consumption have caused the problem, yet we're told that even more growth and consumption can cure it. Are we any richer, any happier, any more ennobled for all the death, the pain, the destruction?
We have bequeathed our children a world which contains less wonder than when we inherited it. We have poisoned their water, polluted their air, and laid much of their land waste. We are handing them a world which to us looked certain, but is now teetering on the brink of catastrophe. And still, governments do nothing. But you can.
Simply by giving up eating meat, poultry, fish and slaughterhouse byproducts, you make an immediate contribution to ending the pain, the cruelty and the destruction. Without meat, Britain would need only 1/3 of its land to grow food. We could replace the woodlands, eradicate the poisons from our soil, allow the waters to run clear. Across all continents, the effect would be astounding. The world itself would breathe a sigh of relief.
In our year of creation, we are but a blink of an eyelid away from devastation. In real time, perhaps a decade or 2 before the downward spiral becomes unstoppable.
The fine web of life, which has existed for millions of years, is trembling under our onslaught. It isn't ordained, it isn't fate, and every one of us can do something to stop it. Stop the killing by becoming vegetarian. You have the choice.